I've entitled this reflection, "You Are Not Your Thoughts." I was reading a homily by Maximos Constas, and I'll link it in the show notes below, about mental health and our thoughts in a Orthodox Christian perspective. Very interesting homily, and I recommend that you go and read it after watching this video. For much of my adult life, I believed that I was the thoughts that came into my head. I used to believe that my thinking was who I was as a human being. I had thoughts that weren't good. We'll call them good thoughts. And I used to think that I wasn't a good person because these thoughts did cross my mind at times. It's interesting to read his homily and to see that in the Orthodox perspective, we aren't our thoughts whatsoever. When I was in my late teens, I used to hang around people that were not of the most positive mindset. They would always criticize other people. It would always be a negative connotation with everything that went on, everything that crossed their path, etc. And I didn't always see myself as this negative person. I used to believe I was very, very positive, actually. But the more and more that I hung around these people, the more that I saw myself having these negative thoughts, and they actually took over. I would see somebody on the street wearing interesting clothing, and I would be like, why are you wearing that? I would see somebody in the gym doing something, and I would criticize them in my mind. And I knew that I wasn't that person, but these thoughts kept coming. They kept passing through. And it was only after I stopped hanging out with negative people, after I really took a hard look at myself, that I was able to start to see the positive thoughts come again. I know that I'm not my thoughts because I wasn't a negative person before, but the thoughts that came in were causing me to be negative because I was allowing the thoughts to land. They were allowed to touch the ground and they were able to fester. In his homily, Maximos Constas talks about how thoughts are kind of like airplanes and we're like the landing strip. And these airplanes will continue to circle. They'll be out there. But if we don't allow them to land, they don't actually make any difference whatsoever. And when you get into Christianity and all of these teachings, you start to see that your thoughts are not necessarily your own. They are put into you by various and different entities. The things that you watch online are then thought up again when you go to bed at night. The things that you consume you. So the biggest difference and the biggest change that I made in my own life was I became very, very cognizant with what I was actually intaking. I became very regimented and I became very strict with what I was taking in. When I started doing this, I started to see these thoughts became less and less frequent. They were not something that came around nearly as often. When previously, if I were online consuming whatever, not being cognizant of what was going into my mind, the negativity would come. Be very cognizant of what you are looking at. Be very cognizant of what you're allowing in. If you watch television, and if you come over to my house, you'll notice that there is no television. The reason being is because I have no idea what's going to come up on that screen. At least with the internet, and I know that this is a terrible argument, at least with the internet, I have some control with the URL I type in the URL bar. But with the television, I have no clue what is going to come up, and I am a bystander. I am just someone there to intake the things that come up on the screen, and I don't allow that in my life anymore. The thing about our modern world is that people do believe that they're their own thoughts. They believe that they are the things that come into their head, and they entertain those thoughts. They sit down with them, they lie with them, they allow them to impact their mood. They allow them to have free reign. Some people are so afraid of the things that come into their mind that they don't even allow things to come into their mind anymore. They are keeping themselves busy at all hours of the day and then knocking themselves out at night so that they don't have to face any of these things that come into the mind. This is why I do truly believe that we are not our thoughts. Thoughts can shape us only if we allow them to. And we have to be cognizant of what we are allowing to shape us. I'll leave you with this. In the homily, Constance talks about how when we see a light turn yellow or red, we speed through it so that we don't have to sit at the light and be alone with ourselves. Every single opportunity that we have to be alone with ourselves is an opportunity to find out who we actually are, to ask the really difficult questions, and to go inside of ourselves to find that which we actually resonate with. You're not your thoughts. You're much more than that.